Back with another session here with the executive director of the Jacksonville Community Action Committee. Jacksonville Community Action Committee.
Said that right.
Jacksonville. Okay, Jacksonville, Florida. How you doing today, brother?
Doing pretty good, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, what you think about that verdict, though?
Rittenhouse verdict?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not surprising. Essentially, it gives Rittenhouse was a product of an upsurge. With any action, there's a reaction. So Rittenhouse and whatever movement he's a part of that's against the protests, he's an example of that. And I think the legal system, working exactly how it's supposed to acquit him is an example of that too, because the system will always protect its own. And there's no, what's the difference between what Rittenhouse did and what other cops do, to protest, it's really no difference, he works for them. They essentially deputized him there. So, it's one of those situations that it just gives green light to more people like him to feel like they can do that.
And what do you think? Why do you think Black people were so engaged with this particular thing, even though it was a European white male versus who killed another European white male? Is it because it was a Black Lives Matter protest? What's your thought?
Yeah, I see it as it's in the same way that in the civil rights movement you had the 3 civil rights workers who got beat up and murdered by the Klan. 2 of them was white people from the North. They got killed under the directives of a movement that's Black. So in that essence, they sacrificed themselves for whatever cause they was out there for. So the cause was racial injustice. They was out there for that. No matter your race, because we got plenty of people like us working for them, the other side. And
right.
So in that aspect, they was fighting against racial injustice because they participated in something that was being done to combat racial injustice. So
really not too much has changed since the 60s. We still have people from all nationalities still fighting for social justice for Black people in America. And those people, Black or white, Asian, Indian, still will get murdered like a dog in the street, like a Black person. And still no justice will come to that one particular individual that was murdered, that was shot and killed. That's crazy. Not too much has changed, huh?
Back in the day, it called them nigger lovers, the white people who was working with the Black people and the civil rights people, they were worse than the Black people because they expected a Black person to do that, but they didn't expect a white person to do that. And when you see a white person going against their own, then that makes them even worse because that makes it dangerous because they can isolate us. But when we get allies alongside us, that just kind of changes the game a little.
So you went to Florida State University, got your political degree in political science?
Yeah, I went to Florida State. I transferred there. I went to FACJ. So I went to a school called Weber International University. It was a NAIA playing offensive lineman. So I went there. Thought it was a scholarship. It was like $1,000 scholarship. I had to take out $10,000 in loans, and I was like, I need to get out of here. So I came back home. Went to FSCJ. And wanted to go to a university. So FSU was the first one that I got an acceptance letter from. I was like, I'm gone. That's right. I didn't even apply to nothing else because I ain't never been in that before.
Right. So what was that experience like being up at Florida State?
Well, it was a predominantly white institution. Let me switch my background, if that's cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
How do you apply? How's your degree help you out with what you do in the streets?
It doesn't help at all. That's the hustle with college, is really what you coming from, I guess growing up in Jacksonville, I grew up off of Long Branch and Pearl Street. You know what I'm saying? I went to Andrew Jackson. I never conceived of college till my senior year in high school when people were signing with people and stuff. So then that's when I thought about, oh shit, college, So I went to FSU and majored in political science on the most superficial level ever. It was a state capital, politics. I should, if I'm going to FSU, I should major in political science. And I was like, that's the capital. I could do, figure something out. I didn't know what it was. So the major itself, I mean, I guess the one thing that I guess you can get out of it is the idea of critical analysis. You know what I'm saying? Thinking about stuff and like actually, certain other programs is more scientific based, like red is red, like if you're a doctor, this is what, cutting somebody does, as opposed to political science. It was more about analyzing it. Now, of course, they pretty much teach you a certain brand of like politics. You kind of realize, and what I realized really fast in college was what I was reading and who wrote it. It was like, I went to a philosophy class and they was talking about Descartes and stuff, and I Googled a picture of Descartes. He was like a upper class white dude, looked kind of weird, and it was a philosopher. You know what I mean? So this is the person writing this whole ideology. Right. Therefore, this is what they're teaching the people, to follow, that thinking. So I kind of realized that pretty early, what I was reading. So I would say I mostly learned, thing I learned the most from college was outside of class. Outside of class is when I, met all these different organizations doing stuff, you know what I'm saying? And all different like people, trying to, work on different issues, learn about different issues. I think that was really what college, is about, the relationships and the experiences you form, because that informs the, you take that back with you, and that impacts how you view everything else and how you apply what it is that you do.
Did y'all get into any Nietzsche?
No, I never got into Nietzsche. I kind of get somewhat the grasp of it. But yeah, I don't know.
Go ahead.
No, I never got into like I was going to major in philosophy, and I took intro to philosophy. Some white man had a D+ in it, and I was like, "This is for me. This is not. This is not for me."
D+ in philosophy, man.
It was just so abstract to me. You know what I'm saying? It was right. I exist, therefore I think I exist. It's like, to the common person, no, I mean, you can think one way, but if you ain't got money, you ain't got money. You know what I'm saying? Or if you ain't got this, so you ain't got it. It don't matter if you think it. And like the people that can afford to think like that is the people who already have it.
Right.
Like, that's the people that wrote it. The people that have property, that have
people already well off.
Right.
Didn't have a huge amount of pressure.
Right. They can think
sit around and philosophize all damn day.
Right. I mean, but that's the people that built our laws in this country. Absolutely. I mean, the people that had slaves. So everything we have, all these laws, the basic foundation, the forefathers, it's all built on like men whose experiences were totally different than ours, And
they tell you in the preamble exactly what it's for. I used to know about hard, but when they talk about basically securing for their beneficiaries, they're talking about their children, their bloodline. And you're not one of their children. You and I don't look like them. So they're building this shit for them. When they talk about, like, people say, the system don't work. Well, it don't work because it wasn't designed for you. You're gonna have to figure out something else. So let me ask you, man, when do you think it was when you went to Florida State, or when do you think you got the bug or the calling or the urge to get into the social justice game?
So I think I was always interested in stuff. Like, my dad was I think a huge kind of ideological influence. He was more of a nationalist. He went to different faiths. He was a Muslim. He was an Israelite. He would always, drop jewels in different. Jews would be dropped at different points. So I kind of already had that lingering. I remember the whole Obama election. They were calling him a Marxist and stuff. And
really,
my dad you remember they was calling Obama a communist and all this.
Right.
He was running a Marxist. They was like, I was like, who's Karl Marx? And I asked my dad, and dad had a different perception of him. I guess everybody who they hated, my dad liked, because he tried. He tried. Yeah, he found good. Aside, it just depends on this. So, like, I think I always had that. I think there was this one thing. One thing I am blessed to be is like in the sense, like I think there was a bill that was going to get passed that was like will make it so that people will have to show their legalization papers. So I think I was at the Capitol and they had these like immigrant mothers who couldn't speak English, and they was having their daughters translate to them to the legislators. So these people who don't know the language, but passionate enough about how this legislation is going to affect their community, they up here, you know what I'm saying, in the Capitol with all these people who don't like them, you know what I'm saying? And they're speaking to the legislators. And a lot of them, kind of those mothers reminded me a lot of my mom, you know what I'm saying? Because my mom was a single parent mom who, wasn't political, you know what I'm saying? Wasn't into that. But so I think that time I liked the feeling of working with people and, seeing people feel like they utilizing their own power, you know what I'm saying? They utilizing their own resources and skill set. So I think since then I was just like, I always had the bug to know, and I was always very curious to do stuff. But I think that kind of focused it, because I used to have thoughts about, wanting to be a writer, like be a journalist. And I wasn't really with that either, because I had to do, you just writing about news that is being created, you're not contributing to being a part of the news, and what the news is doing, is reporting on. So I think at that point, that bill and that particular struggle was when I was like, yeah, I could do this for the rest of my life, because I enjoyed it,
How you feel about writing right now? Because part of the whole game is always have your own propaganda.
I need to write more. I don't write enough, and I think that's a problem with a lot of people who do a lot. They don't write about what they do, and people don't learn it. You know what I'm saying? They never replicate that. So
we're gonna kick out. We're gonna kick out maybe a quarterly thing. I like to have you as a writer, man. Just contribute. The four things: the politics, education, medical, which is part of the mental health, economics, and then of course, we would the honorary piece is always the environmental piece, because sometimes it goes without saying to me when you say environmental racism, which is asinine. And so you were in DC. How long were you in DC?
So I lived up in DC for 3 years.
Were you engaged in anything going on?
So at that time I was working for a union, and it was SEIU, Service Employees International Union. I got a job as a fellowship. So my first assignment they had me, I thought I was going to be in DC, because I was in Tally, basically unemployed for like a year after college, and that at that time there was no jobs available. That 2014, 15, where it was like as opposed to now, I guess. Then went up there because I had been interested, found a job online, got a job with that union. I was always interested in that, and the first thing they do is send me to Baltimore. So I'm like, okay, you got me in Baltimore now. I thought I was going to be in DC, and I'm in Baltimore, and it's January, so I'm getting used to the winter too. So I had a job of organizing security guards at some university they was trying to form a union at. And I was there in that January, and in that April is when Freddie Gray happened. So I was actually like able to be in Baltimore when that city had a whole ass rebellion, like a whole just it was crazy to see. You know what I'm saying? And I started to get involved with some organizations up there. I was trying to like organize. I was working with some students at Howard University. Never really formed any formal organization there. I was kind of I was trying to, but I had, I wasn't in that right mindset there to really create my own or be a part of something substantially. Because I was always already a part of like the union that I was working for though, but that was my job, so kind of got involved superficially and stuff up there before I came back here.
All right. And when you got here, you didn't immediately, or did you immediately form Jacksonville Community Action Committee?
So when I got here, it was April 2017. I immediately, so I didn't move back till June. That year, so we formed JCAC in July. I kind of dove into the Justice for the Jacks 5 stuff. The protesters in at that time Hemming Plaza, now James Weldon Johnson Park, who were beaten by the JSO. So I got that really is what moved me back, because I was up in DC and I was no longer with the union that had another union I had worked for, and I was kind of just at a different place in my life. So I was like, I want to go back home. So an opportunity presented myself. And that's what happened. So yeah, in July 2017, that's when we formed JCAC.
So y'all been putting in some work. What do you think is some of your most important things you've been engaged in? If you got a top 3.
Would you say like in Jacksonville or
anywhere?
So I think I guess starting off so the 2012 when I was still at FSU, we had a 40-mile march after Trayvon was killed from Daytona to Sanford. And that's when the Dream Defenders was created. So I think that experience of being like a co-founder of that organization and organizing the tally and organizing the branch there, because that was something that hadn't been done in a long time, trying to create like a new SNCC of sorts. That was an experience, and they still exist to this day.
Dream Defenders?
Yeah, they still, yeah. I think they based in Miami. They have St. Pete and stuff. Not so much in North Florida. Then they have a chapter in FAMU. Yeah. So Dream Defenders is one for sure. I think another one has to be, forming the JCAC. I think that was something that I'm from Jacksonville, so I always wanted to contribute to something in my home city. I wanted to play some type of part in that change, especially somebody from Jacksonville who grew up wanting to leave Jacksonville.
Right.
Now I'm back and I'm like, I'm never going to leave Jacksonville. I think that was one of those, the fact that we have an organization that we built and that's been sustainable. Something that I'm definitely proud of. I think now, I've been, I'm fortunate enough to be with a national leadership of a group called the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. It was refounded in 2019, in Chicago, but it was founded originally in 1973 as the Angela Davis Self-Defense Committee. I'm proud of that because this is, we're building like a national organization, consisting of groups and network together, like the JCAC in Jacksonville, like, the Tallahassee Community Action Committee, like the Dallas, and it's like trying to create that national push and groups that kind of work together, doing stuff together. So I think that's something I'm very proud of because it's hard to focus on stuff that isn't just what's happening in front of us, but trying to do, I think it's good that like stuff is moving in a good direction.
So do you guys have a mission statement? Like what your main thing is that you operate with or on?
You JCAC or NARPA?
JCC.
Oh, so I mean, we're a Black-led organization.
Why y'all gotta put Black led on them, man? What is that about?
You always got to put it. You always got to emphasize
y'all
it.
Did y'all have some white leaders at one time, or some Mexicans? What's going on?
No, but it's something that you emphasize in the Constitution, because you never know. The thing about creating organizations, you always want to make it sustainable for when you're not around. So,
right,
if I'm not around and it becomes a thing 10 years from now, you never know who around doing it. So you always want to emphasize that in the history of it.
See, that's why you put it in the title, man.
The
Black Commission.
I mean, that pretty much codifies it. Ask y'all, what's y'all
There's
about?
no doubt.
Like,
There's no doubt.
We Black. We together.
Right.
We call it the Black Jacksonville Community Action Committee.
I mean, but the whole Black thing, it's a whole nother level with me, and we get, off level, off. Another time we can talk about like what Black really is. Yeah, when you talk about nationality and Black codes and Negro codes and all other kind of stuff. What are you guys working on right now?
So right now, I mean, we usually do a lot of stuff in regards to the city budget. Our position is the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office has a overbloated allocation of our city's dollars and resources, and that should be redirected towards the Black community. Let me just
give a little bit of insight, just in case nobody knows or whatever.
Right.
So the city budget is basically like $1 billion, right? The sheriff won at least almost 45% of that billion. 500 million, 600 million.
Yeah, like 503.
Yeah, so it's almost half. It's more than half. Unless I think the budget may be 1.5 or something like that.
It's like I think it's like 1.3. So I think it's actually like 42. If you want to be, complete right. Number wise, it's how much. Yeah, round off. It's almost half to the budget. That's kind of how it is.
Right, and you talk about a city that already has major financial issues and other systemic issues that can be eradicated with the proper financing in the right place. You have the entire police department who's suspect in certain eyes, asking for almost half the budget, which would make it look like, I guess, in your guys' eyes, this city was almost like a police town, a military state.
It is a police town. It is a police town. I mean, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is probably definitely a top 25 largest employer in the city. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about they probably have at least 5,000 employees. Which in itself in one city is significant. Like the city of Jacksonville probably has around 5,000 employees. Workers who work for the city, you know what I mean? So they constitute a large portion of it. And I think that's, your priorities as a community is based on like where you put your money at, So
where do you think the money should go at? Would you guys put together something called what? The People's Budget?
People's Budget. Yeah, part of the People's Budget was like reimagining how our city dollars could be spent. So, we brought the example of, okay, last year the budget was $480. Let's say you cut that in half, because the fire department budget is around that range. So let's say if you had $200 million to spend on stuff, what could you do with it? So a lot of what we were saying was you could put so much money into different, already existing city departments that, currently don't really meet the needs. Like, we have a Department of Community Services and whatnot. They kind of deal with like mental health, like resources. homelessness, affordable housing. Imagine if that department, which I think the budget allocation is around like a couple million, imagine if they got like their budget doubled, the amount of work they could do to provide better mental health, like resources for our community. One of the things that we also talked about was, there's the Northwest Jacksonville Development Fund, and their annual budget, how much is that? Like maybe a couple million. Imagine if that got $10 million, and how many more Black businesses you could see with investments and loans. It's things like that. Like it's stuff that we have the capacity to do, but we're so fixated as a city in police. Like we're so fixated, like the white community in one part of town is so fixated on like the idea of them being safe. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to that, they'll fund more police because they feel as though the police in certain parts of town work for them. And in our community, due to like different crime and whatnot, violent crime, you have some people in our community who think we need more police too, because we need protection, not understanding that all that crime and comes from poverty, lack of opportunity, lack of ownership. Therefore, if you keep it that way, you're going to get this, and when people don't have it, they're going to go get it. So,
right.
It makes perfect sense. Sadly, it makes perfect sense why our homicide rate and crime rate, hasn't really dipped compared to national averages, because our poverty rate necessarily hasn't dipped. Like we still have the same lack of opportunity. It's almost like this city has changed in the sense that the last 10, 15 years, certain parts of town, like the university has grown. So you've gotten like a bunch of, I would say probably a lot, mainly white, like out of towners with college educations who moved into the city and brought their money, brought their dollars. So the politics of the city is changing a little, and the demographics and whatnot. But then it's like, the rest of the town hasn't risen up with other parts of town. You know what I'm saying? So,
do you think that's deliberate?
Oh, 100%. Was it, the Walter Rodney, how Europe underdeveloped Africa, how Dixie Capital underdeveloped the North Side. I mean, consolidation essentially, it took me a while to learn about consolidation, but when I thought about it from the mindset, it's like consolidation was just like glorified gerrymandering, but it was even more sinister because they took all the tax money that was being brought from the urban core and used it to develop their side of town, So the beaches, South Side, Atlantic, all that jazz was developed based on money that came from the urban core. So it's like essentially Jacksonville should have been like a city with Black representation and possibly more Black ownership, but it's done in that way to restrict us from the resources. Like I do feel like Black people are a majority in the city if you actually count it like, the parts of town that should count. Like no way is an area near what was it, Baldwin, part of Jacksonville. That doesn't make sense. They have a totally different life than somebody off of First Street or something, but they're included. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's deliberately done to make sure the money is flowing back to the parts of town that own it, and it's a sinister plan that works,
Absolutely. Redlining played a major role in it. When you talk about consolidation in the 60s, even, they tried several times before. So when they finally got it, the federal government was saying that the bigger your city is and more homes that you have, we can fund, they get federal dollars, because the city, I believe, is like 34 miles big. And then, when they consolidated, it was too big, too quick. They don't have enough funding or staffing, like when it comes to the police or fire department, to cover the entire city. So their thing was, because of the white flight, when those people went out towards those beaches, Jax, Neptune, not Fernandina, but the other beaches, they then expanded that tax base with consideration, meaning we'll get your tax dollars, and you can still vote, and only the mayor and sheriff, but the people of Jacksonville cannot vote in their mayor or their chief of police. So essentially what they did was they solidified white power through the political process.
Like, yeah, like how is like the Atlantic Beach, like you're right, like how is the Atlantic Beach, they got a city council district, yet we can't vote in the Atlantic Beach like mayor race.
Right.
You know, they can dictate like how dollars are spent. And of course, like it's like it's ingenious in a way in which if you put people like that who's natural, you know, because you're not going to get somebody from Atlantic Beach who's going to advocate for the North Side, you know, because Atlantic Beach is where you have a more affluent class of people, you know, especially white.
They're not even trying to come to Jacksonville for what?
They don't care about anything, development or anything. They don't even care about crime in Jacksonville. It doesn't bother them because they have the beach. Right. So if you get those people who always have a natural tendency towards, you know, being against anything on the North Side because they're safe, you kind of lock that in institutionally, this type of rule. You know what I'm saying? Like you kind of lock in like essentially minority rule in a lot of ways. Because what is it? You got consolidation was like you got 4 Black city council districts, and you're supposed to have 1 Black mayor. 4 out of 13, you know. So it's
and they kept the at-large seats to solidify their position.
Right. So you keep the at-large, and then so off jump you have a strong mayor system that city council is not going to do anything independent. I mean, the mayor creates the budget and the mayor approves the budget. Like he has to sign it. They go through their process to figure out the details. But if the mayor don't like your district having an appropriation, the mayor going to veto that and go back to the drawing board. So in that essence, our system of governance always creates strong allegiances to the mayor. So you have a white power mayor, the Black people, the Black districts, if they want to get appropriations, they're gonna sell out to the white power mayor because they trying to get them, you know what I mean? So it's almost hard to view a lot of these Black elected officials without seeing that prism, even though, I mean, you know, just they deserve, you know, the ones that don't do what they're supposed to do, you know, they deserve it all. But you know, it's like the system itself breeds that type of like corruption and people selling out. It's just
the city, not to cut you off, but the cities definitely have had when it comes to Black representation, some things that look great, but it really wasn't great. And then, you know, I ran for office, so I realized that you can't please everybody, right? You can't please everybody, and you're gonna always, no matter what good you think you've done, somebody else ain't happy with it because you ain't do this. You did this much, but you ain't do this much. So, and then they try to put you in a barrel and a box and everything else. But I see the importance of having being inside, outside, influence, every position that you can take with this particular system when it comes to liberation and equity for our community is being hands-on with it. And that's why we created the Black Commission to just kind of like write policy bills. And then of course, what we found is no matter how ingenious and simple it may be, because it came from us, we ain't gonna work with it, but just leave a copy for us. And then of course, 2 years later, that thing pops up, whatever it is. So we do our own celebrations. I think we know that they've taken what we've done. And I was taught by my father, man, even if you can't do it, give it to somebody who can. Like, for example, the Black Panther Party, when they started the breakfast program, the government took it and they put it everywhere. Everywhere they took it. They didn't give them the credit, but we know where it comes from. And WIC? Same thing with WIC, Panther Party. They took that and they took it and made it a national thing. And so in some instances, I won't say that particular system is good, but I'll say that they can recognize some of the good that comes from grassroots organizations that's a necessity to be a necessity to be nationally implemented throughout the country. So I think I like to see you guys, man, get more involved with writing some stuff that we can help stimulate and systemically, you know what I'm saying, move the progression arrow, man, in our favor. And I got our plan for the Black Commission, the Comedic Empire for the next year is going to be, it's going to be like the old days. we go try. It's deep, and it's just maybe me, but it seems like people only react to sensationalism, man. You can come with the Michael Dysons that'll come. They're gonna come. He'll be here. Sound great, but it's not systemic here in Duval County. People come here every day, every year, give speeches to private groups and all the other stuff. The people take the information to haul ass. It's dispersed. It's fleeting. That's why I think that we have to build our institutions. Everything that we suffer in as a people, we have to have our own. And then for those who don't agree, that's still us. This is what I call our Harriet Tubman mentality. And then we got to make those oppressive institutions that you want to stay in do what they're supposed to do and be right by you. And then, of course, in my older years, I'm realizing like, damn, I personally don't want to spend a whole bunch of time in those institutions when we could just be building versus always on the defense. We got to have the offensive, the offense part, man, that's going to be about the building. What you think? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's like I think a part of a movement is, I used to think like 10 years ago, like my thinking may have been one way. I think now my thinking is like a movement, everybody has different roles. So you need like the people doing the economic work, let's say building parallel or their own institutions for the nation, Black nation. You need people who are the activists pushing political propaganda, and you need the regular everyday people working, and I mean, you need everything. It's not people, I think you need a combination of everything, because I think if you get pigeonholed into one, I mean, our history is filled with those experiences of it, like, the whole Booker T, W.B. Du Bois debate. Mm-hmm. Then you look at even like materially, like, we had a period after radical reconstruction in which we, built Black institutions and we took power, but, what were we missing? We were missing a political army, and almost, that the politics of it, because, think about Wilmington, North Carolina. I mean, they had a majority Black government, and they had a coup d'etat in which the white people came back and took power again. Jacksonville had somewhat of that. Then the city took his charter and put somebody else in power. Tulsa, Rosewood. These are all examples of like Black development and creation, but we didn't have the guns or the political, capital to defend it. So I think you need it all.
Absolutely.
And I think, there's a lot of people on the activist side, you would say, who don't think about the economics and the ownership part of it, and you're only going to be able to reach out to a certain amount of people through that language, like, if you're talking about, just different flavors, some people are going to be moved by, how can they create more like ownership for themselves, or for their families, that might be move somebody. Another person might be moved about how do they like hold this city council person accountable for what they not doing. You know what I mean? So it all works together. And I think the good thing about conversations like this is we can kind of understand the different languages we all have. Because I think we all, at the end of the day, want the same thing. We want self-determination, and we want ownership, and we want liberation, but oftentimes I think it's taught in different ways. And, I think the lack of like common language often will kind of cripple what unity folks naturally have.
When I started out on my my adult journey out into the world as a lecturer, I first started as a lecturer, and it was me and my partner in Atlanta. We was like, our vow was to never be a poor righteous teacher. We wasn't going to be ill on the bed, our deathbed, old, and having a GoFundMe after 30, 40 years, 50, 60 years of work inside the community. We wasn't going to die owning 3 suits like Dr. King. We wasn't going to die basically homeless. Because remember, like Malcolm, when they burned his house down, the next day he did the ball, he was dead. He died homeless. And he left his wife, the children, the beneficiaries. They had nothing. They have a small organization. When it's grassroots, people think poor. My ideal is for that we can always maintain your position in your job. To me, a well-rounded revolutionary would have enough time, freedom. That's, to me, the ultimate thing, is to have your freedom where you still have your war chests, where you still have your entities that help fund, so you can fund and that automate your lifestyle, where you can go out and do the work for the people, right? You don't have to ask for money because you self-sustained whatever organizations you're a part of, and you self-sustain and you still go get the grants, because that's what it is. It's set up. They just give you the money to do what you're already doing. You're not really changing anything. People got to understand about grants. When you get grants, if you're a farmer, they're giving you a grant to farm. You're not under people's control. They're not saying, hey, stop. Well, that's not true. They're telling people to stop farm. They cut checks for people to destroy their crops, which is weird. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But our thing with us was to make sure that, and I didn't want to be the guy to be out and everything. My whole split or whatever it is, you got to pay me for it. I never charged for anything, and no matter where I traveled, they give you an honorarium or they'll bring, but it wasn't like a charge. So I had my own product. I had books that I wrote, and I have tons of case laws that I would sell, put together people, on different levels and stuff, so they can understand the law. My thing was about, we got to make sure we understand the law, and we got to get this economic collective together. And then I realized these niggas don't care about that. They want to know about the aliens, with Jesus Black, with Samaritan Kemet, who was first. Like, y'all niggas don't get this, man. We need money, dog, together. We need a national distribution. All you gotta do is go back to the 60s when we needed somebody from Chicago, he'd come out of Florida, he could stay here, boom, he could travel. You need all these networks working together, but then you got COINTELPRO. So you're a national organization. I don't know if they don't put somebody in that one, or somebody put that one in that one. So we stayed local, and we'd always push for, my thing is always ownership and control, because those two particular things is like economic and political power. When you got your economic power, everything is built on top of that, just like what Dr. Claude Anderson talks about, the 5-story building. When you build on that, you good. But and then I had to realize this. I know I'm carrying on, man, but it just keep me. When we talk about Dr. King, and a lot of people say, well, Dr. King ruined us. And then I like to remind people about that. When you're in the middle of a fire, you're not trying to think about what the fuck is going to happen next week. I need to get you out the fire. Then I need to make sure that they don't ever try to start the fire here. That you concerned about that immediate thing, not looking at the economic piece, but that piece was coming. The economic piece was coming. Now, we do have the demonstrations of Noble Drew Ali, Elijah Muhammad. He got the perfect demonstration of the economic piece. But my thing with the grassroots organizations is, when we gotta hit a flight, got to go out of town, or you want to do something bigger than what you're doing, and you actually want to build some institutions. Like, one of our missions for this year was to have an office with the real estate game, even in the hood, is no good for investors, because it's a seller. Everybody, these hedge firms are buying up everything at a 25, 35% markup, which creates some inflation. Anyway, I just felt that with all of our future leaders, the leaders that we have now, the economic piece have to be, like the third rail inside your organization. So even if you're going to get grants, make sure you get a grant where it's a salary type of grant. So your leaders, they can lead their job and they can work. Now they have funding to do what it is they want to do. And there's no charge to the people that you help. And I always had an issue with, like, you call yourself a leader, but you charge niggas $100 to come hear you talk. Like, you freeing them up, but they gotta have $100. Who you think can have $100 to hear you free them up? You know what I'm saying? When we talk about the less of us, and that's where to me, when we talk about the title of this thing, the future, and I was, we was talking about the title, I was thinking about the title, and I was just thinking about the future of social justice. And that goes in not only an individual like yourself, the future of social justice, but how we see what the future of social justice should look like. And to me, that's where the manifestation of what we believe and also putting in those policies and what we believe the future of social justice look like. Right? I don't know. I'm just rambling shit. But what you think?
No, I agree. I think that's part of why we created the people's budget. I mean, because we understand, like, our main demand has always been around, what the Panthers wanted, which is, community control of the police. We think that, like, it's hard for us to do anything, get any type of other housing, education, and whatnot if we're constantly under the threat of lynchings, which we kind of basically view it as, the 21st century lynching is a police shooting people. But, part of the people's budget is how do we, unite all these different sectors together, these different classes. I mean, because, what's the main impediment towards Black control and Black ownership? It's the same class of individuals that uphold the JSO. It's the same people who, even with some of the unions who, upholding them from getting, good contracts and whatnot. So, like, how do we create the broadest possible unity to unite on one thing? And I think that's partly why we did that, because how can we politically support those who are at City, those Black, entrepreneurs who are at City Hall trying to fight for grants and different zoning laws to get changed. But, our whole thing is, and I firmly do believe this, you have a lot of brothers and sisters trying to do that, but we'll always run into a wall because, the white supremacist power structure will always give us a limitation, on how big we can get, how much we can own, how much we can grow, because they don't want us, they want our people to always be consumers for them,
Right.
Like they want us to always be a market for them, because that's how they always getting people to buy their products, eat their food, go to their restaurants. Because if we
how do you get around that?
I mean, I think is the approach that people are doing in terms of building your own, but also politically, creating an organization politically to pass a people's budget or create enough organization that's going to make, those, elected have to respect the will of the people. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's twofold approach. So I think all approaches are working towards the same end. And how can we align those approaches so each head of the snake know where we're going? You know what I'm saying? I think that's why conversations like these are good to have. So I think that's probably the future. I mean, the future is, we have a more awakened population now. I think we have a lot more brothers and sisters who are more woke to stuff, you would say, than we had probably in the history of Jacksonville. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
The existing, the existing Black power structure that kind of have been gatekeepers. I pretty much think they're out of.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I got a few minutes left.
Since I got my preacher friend sitting over here.
I got you.
What do you think is the Black power structure in this city?
I think is so I don't necessarily think there is a black power structure. Okay, I don't think black people have a lot of power. I think you have certain amount of clergy who have historically, had a relationship with the city. They may have formed that relationship on the basis of them surviving as an institution, which further allows them to do the good stuff that they can do.
Yeah. Why do you think white people always call on the preachers, the black preachers first? And if you don't know, I'm going to give you this historical answer.
No, W.B. Du Bois used to write about how the churches are the greatest social institute in the black community. So in a lot of ways, churches have been one of the main forms of black social organization that we've had, especially in the Deep South. So they reach out to the churches because the churches, have social organization amongst black people. If it was another organization that had the same, think about a church organization, you have, 1,000 dues tithe paying people, all coming listen to one leader, one vision. Therefore, they reach out to them because they understand the capacity of the church and the power that the church has historically had in our communities.
I like that, but let me add this. Let me add where the black preacher was born at, where he was created at. He was created on the plantation by his oppressor while he was enslaved to copy the white oppressor and give his own people the oppressor's religion. Right? Am I right so far? You with me so far?
Yeah.
Now, we know the history of Nat Turner. We're going to take Nat Turner, put him on a tour. We need you to go to every plantation, boy, and keep these people calm. So when they uprise, they call on the preachers that they created to be a gatekeeper for them. In its origin, its original state, that's what's going on. Now, once they became an African Methodist and all this other stuff, and some of those people kept their African traditions through these other institutions that was blended in with the European institutions, they were doing what they were supposed to do in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, because it was a collective effort to make sure that the family was together, to make sure they had a sound mind, a sound diet, that type of thing. And then when the money got in it, and then they seen the power, you have the abusive and, you have the people who just kind of front men, man. I try not to throw all the preachers away, all the black ones away. I got one sitting right here with me, my man, Preacher Dawson. Come on over, shout out Michael Sampson, brother. Come on over, man. Preacher Dawson be putting work in the community. Come on, you got to bring the head all the way over, brother.
What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
Doing good, brother.
Oh no, I was just listening. But what y'all was saying, man, I like what you was talking about. And then the economic part and all that, because I do believe everybody got to come together and be on the same page in order to produce the change you want to see. Because as long as we come in from different standpoints and nobody uniting, we're gonna get the same results. So I do believe we got to come together.
How we gonna come together? We always say we come together. How we gonna come together?
Well,
eat some chicken?
No, man, you see here now, right?
Yeah,
that's one way.
Okay.
All right, we might not agree on everything, but we agree on some of the things. So those things we can kind of work together for the economic part for the community.
What we're gonna do by the old preachers in Jacksonville, man?
Man, some of them, be honest with you, bro. Some of the old ones gotta step back a little bit because they are sold out and they're not really. Well, I ain't trying to put people on blast, but they got caught up on the agendas of other stuff. Some of them.
I put them on blast. Thank you, brother. I don't want to get you in trouble. We might go deep right now.
I think in a lot of ways, a lot of them are they're discredited amongst the people,
Right.
Like how much following do they have now? You had all them people, let's say last year, who was protesting. Was any of them organized by any of the traditional institutions? That, what I'm saying? Like, their grip. I don't think it's that strong anymore.
I got something for you. And you guys are noted for doing the largest protests in the city of history, right? Here's what I want you to do next time. Y'all get that many people and learn this going to a Nation of Islam meeting. I want you to say, How y'all doing? They're gonna be like, all right. If you're feeling good, put your hand up. All right. Now with that same hand, dig in your pocket and bring out $20. We need this going to the people's budget. You understand? Pull out your cash app. I'm about to tell you who the cash app is to right now. To me, if you get a third of them, that same third that's willing to give up a little $20, $5, and you can take that and then show them what you could do with that, right? That's great trust, man. When people are giving you money, that's that power the preachers have. I just wish, one of my wishes for Black preachers is this: build some institutions for us, non-religious. You understand? We did an action. It was a national action, and it was very difficult to get Black people to walk out of church. So we did a church walkout around the country one time. Now the other thing that was supposed to go on was those same churches supposed to get together. We're gonna put some money together and we're gonna build Black institutions. Once Black people get into their mindset that they need their own thing, just like when you go to a Jewish community where they walk to temple, when they walk to their stores, when you can see the Hebrew and they speak in Yiddish within their own confine, when you go to Little Italy, when you go to these places, when you see these, and it's not all confined to religion, some are, some are not. They're based on a nationality and having, their own coochie chocolate, their own self-determination. Once our people in this city can see that, we don't have to rebuild Wall Street. We got plenty of streets, okay, that's owned and controlled by Black people, but it doesn't have like a significant type of some type of mission or something like that, man. Once we get on a page, block voting, that whole thing, these are huge wishes for the Black community. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not once I studied the Dr. King movement, that's really who I try to move after. I realized that whole thing about Black unity is an illusion. And I'm gonna tell you why. So under Jim Crow, some of the toughest pressure before that, it was being enslaved. Under Jim Crow, we thrived because we were, in a sense, forced legally to do business with each other, go to our own institutions, have our own baseball league, our own football league where we had stadiums, vendors, everything was our shit. And somehow, when we ended Jim Crow with the civil rights movement, because most Negroes don't realize Jim Crow only ended because activists, revolutionaries, sacrifice was put in place by grassroots people around the country, right? Excuse me. It wasn't about integration. It was about moving freely, right? Be able to travel across state line, would be able to move inside a restaurant, a hotel, if we didn't own one without being lynched and all this other crap. So we suffered economically because economics wasn't a part of the plan, even though the Civil Rights Act is under the economic arm of the law. Most people don't even realize that. So my point about the illusion of Black unity, the moment that they said, well, it's okay to stay across the track after dark and we're going to eliminate these sunsets, niggas hauled ass. They left. No one told them to leave. No one said go to Mandarin, and no one said go to that area. They left. They left Durkeeville. You know what I mean? And then other people destroyed the other, the rich Black with the interstates, and that's a whole nother thing. Mm-hmm. But my point is, our people felt like there was nothing going on with their own. There was no need to build up their own. Go where the other people are at. And I had a huge issue with that. And that's why I just feel like this whole thing about Black unity, it's not, it sounds good, but I think simply work with those who are already doing the work and who's willing to put the work in instead of trying to recruit a whole bunch of people and slogan them to with Black unity and stuff, because they ain't gonna do it. That's to me. It's just like, that's not a shot.
It has to, the unity has to be based on a practical thing. Like it just, it's hard to get people to all agree on an idea, you know what I'm saying? But like, can we agree to go to the city council to demand that they give this $100 million to, you know what I mean? That's something that's people can grab. because that's Black unity. People coming together and being like, yeah, that money should go to us. That's unity. You know, we could talk all, you know, we can have conferences and where we talk about what we believe and stuff, and all because everyone say, yo, I agree, don't mean that they walking out there in unity. But, you know, like, you know, unity has to have a practical application to it. It can't just be a rhetorical one. I gotta hop off though, bro. And I gotta hop off in a minute or so.
Okay, well, we'll wrap it up, man. I appreciate you sitting down and talking with us. And you know, we'll come back, circle back around, man, and talk again.
Hey,
yeah, man, let's do it again. I mean, as soon as you know, I'm down. You know, like always have a conversation, and you know, we'll get it. I'm gonna do it more frequently. That works for me.
Okay, what's up, bro?
Hey, some of your associates, they came out when we did the On the Prowl walk over the Kings Road area. You familiar with that?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
I was with that group that did that as well.
That's what's up.
So yeah, I'm familiar with some of the things y'all got going, man. Keep doing your thing, bro.
Nah, we appreciate you, bro.
All right, y'all. Michael Sampson. Peace out. Executive of Jacksonville Community Action Committee, man. Peace out.
I appreciate you, Dallo. Thank you for all you're doing.
Yes, sir.